The 70s gave us some of the most iconic music ever made. But while everyone knows Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, and the Bee Gees, there's a whole world of incredible tracks that slipped through the cracks, hidden gems that deserved more attention. Today, we're shining a light on 12 songs from the 1970s you've probably never heard. Number 12, Moonlight Feels Right by Starbuck, 1976. Atlanta's Starbuck wasn't your typical rock band. They had a marimba player. When Bruce Blackman formed the group in 1974, he wanted something different, something that would stand out on the radio. That marimba became their signature sound. The story behind the song is almost as interesting as the music itself. Blackman wrote it after an evening drive through Maryland, inspired by the moonlight reflecting off the landscape. He captured that feeling in a song that somehow felt both romantic and carefree at the same time. But getting it heard was another matter entirely. The record company released Moonlight Feels Right in late 1975, and it went absolutely nowhere. Radio programmers didn't know what to make of it. Was it rock? Was it Caribbean? Was it pop? Nobody wanted to take a chance on something they couldn't easily categorize. Blackman and marimba player Bo Wagner weren't ready to give up, though. They bought 500 copies of their own record and literally drove across the country, visiting radio stations and hand-delivering the single. One station in Birmingham, Alabama told them it sounded like a spring song, so they'd wait until spring to play it. True to their word, when April 1976 rolled around, that station put it into rotation. The response was immediate. By May, Moonlight Feels Right was climbing the charts, eventually reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. For a few months that summer, you couldn't escape it. The song had this breezy, Caribbean-influenced groove that felt perfect for driving with the windows down. The marimba gave it an almost tropical quality, while the rhythm section kept it grounded in soft rock territory. Bo Wagner's marimba solo became one of the most recognizable moments in 70s pop music. Wagner had studied under Emil Richards and performed on The Lawrence Welk Show before joining Starbuck. His approach to the instrument was unconventional for rock music, but that's exactly what made it work. The solo he laid down was actually his first take, essentially a rehearsal run that everyone realized couldn't be improved. But here's the thing about Starbuck. They never could recreate that magic. I Got to Know made it to number 43, and Everybody Be Dancin' reached number 38 in 1977. But nothing came close to matching their debut hit. Their follow-up singles barely registered on the charts, and by 1980, the band had dissolved. These days, Moonlight Feels Right survives mostly on oldie stations in the South. A reminder of one perfect summer when everything clicked for a band that dared to do something different. Number 11, Undercover Angel by Alan O'Day, 1977. Alan O'Day spent years writing hits for other people before he got his own moment in the spotlight. He penned Angie Baby for Helen Reddy, which went to number 1 in 1974. But O'Day wanted to be more than just a songwriter working behind the scenes. In 1977, he recorded Undercover Angel himself. The song told the story of a dream lover who disappears with the morning light. It had a catchy, almost hypnotic quality, with O'Day's distinctive voice floating over acoustic guitars and gentle keyboards. The song hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in July 1977, spending a week at the top. O'Day performed it on television shows and watched it become a genuine phenomenon. But lightning didn't strike twice. His subsequent releases failed to chart, and O'Day eventually returned to songwriting for other artists. He passed away in 2013, but Undercover Angel remains a perfect time capsule of late 70s pop craftsmanship. Number 10. Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, by Looking Glass, 1972. New Jersey's Looking Glass formed in 1969, playing clubs and college campuses for years before getting their shot at recording. The band met at Rutgers University, where Elliot Lurie and his friends bonded over their love of British invasion bands and Motown. They paid their dues the old-fashioned way, hauling equipment to dingy bars and playing for whoever would listen. Lurie wrote Brandy about a barmaid waiting for a sailor who would never settle down. The story was simple, almost like a folk tale, but the way they told it made all the difference. There's some debate about whether the song was based on a real person. Some claimed it was inspired by a woman named Mary Ellis, who lived in New Brunswick in the 18th century, waiting for a sea captain who never returned. Lurie himself said that wasn't the case, that the song came from his imagination, but the legend persisted anyway. The song opens with that distinctive piano riff, immediately setting the scene of a harbor town. Then it builds with strings and Lurie's earnest vocals, painting a picture so vivid you can almost smell the salt air and hear the creaking of ships at dock. The production was sophisticated for a band's debut single, with layers of instrumentation that supported the story without overwhelming it. Getting the song on the radio took some persistence. A promotion manager at Epic Records in Washington took a test pressing to every station in the Baltimore and Washington area. WPGC, one of the top stations in the country, played it in heavy rotation for 2 days. The program director said the response was unlike anything he'd seen in 15 years. The switchboard lit up with requests, and within weeks, Epic rush released it as a single. Brandy reached number 1 in August 1972 and stayed there for a week. The narrative struck a chord with listeners. Everyone knew someone like Brandy, someone waiting for a life that might never arrive. The song had such cultural impact that it actually influenced baby names. In 1971, Brandy ranked as the 353rd most popular girl's name in America. In 1972, it jumped to 140th. By 1973, it had climbed to 82nd. Looking Glass toured extensively on the strength of that one hit, but their subsequent singles couldn't match its success. They released Jimmy Loves Mary Ann, which made it to number 33, but nothing else caught fire. The band struggled with the pressure of following up such a massive hit. By 1974, they'd broken up, unable to recapture what had made Brandy so special. Lurie went on to work in music publishing and television, eventually becoming head of music at 20th Century Fox. The song itself has had an interesting afterlife, showing up in movies and TV shows, most memorably in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, introducing new generations to Looking Glass's one moment of brilliance. Number 9. Shannon, by Henry Gross, 1976. Henry Gross had been the guitarist for Shannon, the 50s revival group that performed at Woodstock. When he went solo in the mid-70s, nobody expected him to write one of the decade's most touching ballads. Shannon was about a dog. Gross had his own Irish setter named Shannon, but the song was actually written about Carl Wilson's dog, also named Shannon. When Gross visited Wilson's home in 1975, they discovered they both had dogs with the same name. Released in the summer of 1976, Shannon climbed to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song's sincerity connected with listeners who'd experienced similar losses. Gross sang it with genuine emotion, backed by soft acoustic guitars and subtle string arrangements. Gross continued recording throughout the 70s and 80s, but never approached the success of Shannon. These days, the song still gets played on classic hit stations, still makes people think about the pets they've loved and lost. Number 8. Wildfire by Michael Martin Murphey, 1975. Michael Martin Murphey came out of the Texas country scene, but Wildfire transcended genre boundaries. The song told a ghost story about a girl and her pony lost in a blizzard on the plains. It had the feel of an old campfire tale, something passed down through generations. The story of how the song came to be is almost as mystical as the lyrics themselves. Murphy was working with Larry Kanzler on a concept album for Kenny Rogers in the mid-70s. They were putting in brutal hours, sometimes working 22 hours a day in Kanzler's Los Angeles apartment. Murphy was exhausted, sleeping on the floor between sessions, completely drained from the demanding schedule. One night, in the midst of all this, Murphy had a dream. He saw the entire song, heard the melody, understood the story. When he woke up the next morning, he wrote it down in just a few hours. He believed it came from a story his grandfather had told him when he was young, a Native American legend about a ghost horse that roamed the plains. The dream had somehow pulled all those childhood memories together into something tangible. When it came time to record his own album, Murphy wasn't even sure Wildfire belonged on it. It was so different from everything else he'd been doing. But producer Bob Johnston heard something in it, and Murphy trusted his instincts. Larry Kanzler and Murphy crafted verses that built tension and mystery. The song opens on a cold Nebraska night, with the narrator planting crops by the dark of the moon. Then comes the snow, and the hoot owl outside the window. And you realize this isn't just a story about something that happened long ago. It's happening now, to the person singing the song. Murphy's voice had a weathered quality that made the story feel authentic, like he'd actually witnessed these events. The production featured acoustic guitars, gentle percussion, and just enough orchestration to create atmosphere, without overwhelming the narrative. Every element served the story, from the spare arrangement to the way Murphy's voice rose and fell with the wind-swept imagery. Wildfire reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1975. It crossed over from country to pop seamlessly, finding audiences who might never listen to traditional country music. The song had a timeless quality that worked in its favor. It could have been written in 1875 or 1975, and that ambiguity made it accessible to listeners across different backgrounds and musical preferences. Murphy built a solid career in country and Western music that continues to this day. But Wildfire remains his signature song. It's still played on both country and adult contemporary stations, still casting its spell over listeners who love a good story wrapped in a memorable melody. The song has appeared in films and television shows, and Murphy has re-recorded it multiple times over the years, most recently as a duet in 2025, proving that some stories never lose their power. Number 7. Alone Again, Naturally, by Gilbert O'Sullivan, 1972. Irish singer-songwriter Gilbert O'Sullivan wrote some of the 70s most deceptively cheerful-sounding sad songs. Alone Again, Naturally, might be the best example. The melody bounces along pleasantly, while the lyrics deal with suicide, death, and crushing loneliness. O'Sullivan recorded it in a sparse style, his piano and voice front and center, with minimal backing. The production choices emphasized the intimacy of the writing. He sang about personal tragedy, with a conversational tone that made it feel like he was confiding in the listener. Alone again, naturally. The song spent 6 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1972. It became a massive international hit, topping charts in multiple countries. Radio programmers loved it because it sounded upbeat, while listeners who paid attention to the words found something much darker and more complex. O'Sullivan had other hits in the early 70s, but Alone Again, naturally, overshadowed everything else he did. He eventually retreated from the spotlight, tired of the music industry's demands. But the song has endured as a masterclass in contrasting form and content.
It seems to me that there are more hearts broken in the world.
Number 6. Afternoon Delight by Starland Vocal Band, 1976. Bill Danoff and Taffy Nivert were already successful songwriters when they formed Starland Vocal Band with John Carroll and Margot Chapman. Danoff had co-written Take Me Home Country Roads for John Denver back in 1971, a song that became one of the defining hits of the decade. He understood how to craft a melody that stuck with people, how to tell a story that felt both personal and universal. The story behind Afternoon Delight is wonderfully mundane for such a suggestive song. Danoff and Nivert were having lunch at a restaurant called Clyde's in Washington, D.C. The menu listed something called an Afternoon Delight, which turned out to be a cocktail. Danoff thought the name had possibilities, and when he got home, he sat down and wrote the song in about 20 minutes. The melody was bright and catchy, with 4-part harmonies that showcased the group's vocal abilities. The song walked a fine line between innocence and innuendo. If you listened casually, it sounded like a pleasant tune about spending quality time together. If you paid closer attention to the lyrics, you realized it was about something more intimate than a casual lunch date. The innuendo was there if you listened for it, but subtle enough to slip past casual listeners and radio programmers who might have been more conservative about what they'd play. The group recorded it with producer Milton Oken, who'd worked extensively with John Denver and Peter, Paul, and Mary. Oken knew how to make vocal harmonies shine, and Afternoon Delight benefited from his expertise. The production was clean and radio-friendly, perfect for the AM stations that still dominated in 1976. Afternoon Delight hit number 1 in July 1976 and stayed there for 2 weeks. It won a Grammy for Best Arrangement for Voices, beating out some serious competition. The Starland Vocal Band even got their own summer variety show on CBS, appearing alongside established stars and performing for millions of viewers every week. For a few months, they were everywhere you looked, the new faces of soft rock vocal harmony. Then, it all fell apart faster than anyone could have predicted. Their follow-up singles flopped. Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll barely made a dent in the charts. The TV show, despite initial promise, was canceled after just 1 season. The pressures of sudden fame and the demands of maintaining that level of success took their toll. By 1980, the group had disbanded, unable to recapture the magic that had made them stars. The song itself has become something of a punchline over the years, referenced in movies and TV shows, used as shorthand for 70s soft rock excess. But beneath the jokes, it remains a perfectly crafted piece of mid-70s pop, a song that knew exactly what it was and delivered it with style and confidence. Number 5. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia by Vicki Lawrence, 1973.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
Vicki Lawrence was an actress and comedian, best known for playing Mama on The Carol Burnett Show. She wasn't trying to become a recording artist, but when songwriter Bobby Russell played her The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, she heard something special. The song told a murder mystery set in the rural South, complete with betrayal, revenge, and a shocking twist ending. Lawrence sang it with dramatic flair, treating it like a piece of theater, rather than just another pop song. The production featured acoustic guitars, strings, and enough atmosphere to transport listeners straight to that Georgia courtroom.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
Released in November 1972, it climbed to number 1 by March 1973. The storytelling captivated audiences who wanted more than just another love song on the radio. Lawrence's acting background helped her sell every word, every revelation. She never had another hit single, but she didn't need one. Lawrence continued her successful acting career and still performs occasionally. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia stands alone, a perfect marriage of performer and material that couldn't be replicated.
That's the night that the lights went out in Georgia.
Number 4. Dust in the Wind by Kansas, 1978.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Kansas was known for progressive rock epics, complex instrumental passages, and philosophical lyrics. Dust in the Wind was none of those things. Guitarist Kerry Livgren wrote it as a simple finger-picking exercise, inspired by a passage from a book of American Indian poetry his wife was reading. The song reflected on mortality and the temporary nature of human achievement. Livgren sang about how nothing lasts, how everything eventually returns to dust. The arrangement was sparse, just acoustic guitar, violin, and vocals. For a band that typically featured elaborate keyboard solos and heavy guitar work, it was a radical departure.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Released in January 1978, Dust in the Wind became Kansas's highest charting single, reaching number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. It proved that prog rock bands could write accessible, emotional songs without abandoning their artistic sensibilities. Radio stations loved having a Kansas song they could actually play in regular rotation. The band continued recording and touring for decades, but Dust in the Wind remained their calling card. It's been covered countless times, used in movies and TV shows, and introduced Kansas to listeners who might never sit through a 20-minute progressive rock suite.
Only for a moment, and the moment's gone.
Number 3. Stuck in the Middle with You by Stealers Wheel, 1973.
In the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle.
Jerry Rafferty and Joe Egan formed Stealers Wheel in 1972, bringing together influences from folk, rock, and blue-eyed soul. Stuck in the Middle with You came from Rafferty's frustration with music industry parties, surrounded by people he didn't particularly want to be around. The song had a relaxed, almost lazy groove, with verses that name-checked clowns and jokers while the protagonist tried to make sense of his position. The production borrowed from Bob Dylan and the Beatles, creating something familiar yet distinct.
And you started out with nothing, and you found that you're a self-made man.
It reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in May 1973. The song got steady airplay throughout the 70s, then largely disappeared until Quentin Tarantino featured it in Reservoir Dogs in 1992. Rafferty and Egan split up Stealers Wheel in 1975. Rafferty went on to solo success with Baker Street, while Egan faded from the music scene. But Stuck in the Middle with You has outlived both the band and most people's memories of them.
Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Number 2. Have You Never Been Mellow by Olivia Newton-John, 1975.
Have you never been alone? Have you never...
By 1975, Olivia Newton-John was already a star in her native Australia and had scored hits in America. Have You Never Been Mellow came from songwriter John Farrar, who'd been working with Newton-John since her early days. The song asked a simple question with profound implications. Have you never just let yourself relax, let go of anxiety, and exist in the moment? Farrar's melody was gentle and inviting, with Newton-John's voice perfectly suited to deliver the message.
To find a comfort from...
Released in January 1975, it hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in March. The song struck a nerve with audiences dealing with the stress and uncertainty of the mid-70s. Newton-John sang it with such sincerity that even cynical listeners found themselves drawn in. Newton-John went on to much bigger fame with Grease and Physical, but Have You Never Been Mellow represented a different side of her artistry. The song still shows up on easy listening stations, still asking that same gentle question.
Have you never been mellow? Have you...
Number 1. My Eyes Adored You by Frankie Valli, 1975.
My
Frankie Valli had been a star since the early 60s with the Four Seasons, but his solo career had been hit or miss. My Eyes Adored You changed that. Bob Crewe and Kenny Nolan wrote it, crafting a story about unrequited young love with a melody that stuck in your head for days. Valli sang it in his distinctive falsetto, backed by lush strings and a solid rhythm section. The production had that mid-70s sheen, polished and professional, designed to sound great on both AM and FM radio.
Carried your books from school, playing make-believe.
It hit number 1 in March 1975, proving that Valli still had what it took to compete with younger artists. The song crossed generational lines, appealing to fans who'd grown up with the Four Seasons and teenagers hearing Valli for the first time. Valli continued recording and performing, but My Eyes Adored You marked a turning point in his solo career. It demonstrated that great songs and great singers never go out of style, that the fundamentals of pop music remain constant even as fashions change.
Oh, I never laid a hand on you, my eyes adored you.
The 70s gave us more treasures than we could count, and these 12 songs represent just a fraction of what's out there, waiting to be rediscovered. Each one had its moment. Each one connected with audiences in meaningful ways. If you enjoyed this trip back to the 70s, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the music that shaped our lives. What forgotten 70s gems do you remember? Drop your favorites in the comments below. Thanks for watching.